Welcome to VoiceOver, Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about movies that made a mark, that led to what we're calling cinematic epiphanies. And it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today's movie is from 2023, The Taste of Things, directed by French-Vietnamese director Tran Anh Hung, known for the 1993 The Scent of Green Papaya and from 2016 Eternity. This film, The Taste of Things, was loved by the critics. At Cannes, it received a Best Director award. It was nominated for Caesars in Best Costume Design, Production Design, and Cinematography. And it also won the Best Foreign Language Film from the Critics' Choice Award. And it's a movie for foodies. It's the story of Eugénie, played by Juliete Binoche, a French cook who works in the historical family manor of Dodin, her boss and longtime partner, in creating excellent cuisine. They've also had a long-standing love affair, and in the course of the story, Eugénie finally consents to marry Dodin. Our guest today is Justin Petrisek, who joins us from the University of Notre Dame. You'll remember him from our discussion on Conclave. He is the Nicola Center for Ethics and Culture's Research and Publications Program Manager, and his current research follows the intersection of film, philosophy, religion, and culture, with a focus on, among other things, the relationship between film, the papacy, and the Catholic Church. We'll cover most of the plot of the film, so if spoilers harsh your mellow, go see the film and then come back for our discussion. Stick around after the convo for more movie recommendations.
I love to be in the kitchen. I love to cook. I grew up in a very Italian family where every time people get together, it's always based around food. All our holidays, all our traditions are around food. And so I've always been drawn to cooking shows and put on an episode of Iron Chef, I'm entertained, put on a biopic about, Julia Childs. There's a subgenre of food films that I think enter into this, what does it mean to be human territory? And so something like Babette's Feast, The Taste of Things. I also think Big Night with Stanley Tucci. And then I would also throw in My Dinner with Andre.
I actually love My Dinner with Andre, but I feel like there's not very much food in it. It's more the...
No, you're right. But food does play a central role, I think, in all four of these films. And it's not just these four, but I think these four in particular start to probe those questions of what does it mean to be human? What is the role of food in our lives? How does it actually show us not just as bodies, but as souls?
What's interesting to me, though, is you mentioned Iron Chef, and this is the anti-Iron Chef, right?
It is.
This is in contrast to so much of the food media that we consume in America, which is competitive and it's fast and it's you have 30 minutes to make something that should take you 4 hours. Go, right? The second cooking scene that actually starts 2 minutes in goes on for 30 minutes. It's a team working together. They're training one person in this very loving, gracious way. They're making room for this novice, essentially, and including her. And then just the expertise of especially Eugénie is just lovely to watch and is being emphasized by the camera. The camera it's highly choreographed and the camera is moving and feels these really long takes, and we get edits once in a while, but just nothing like what we see in competitive cooking shows that Americans love. So tell me about that scene and sort of what you began to think as you watched that.
I love you describing it as the anti-Iron Chef because it really is. There's something fast-paced, competitive, and I wouldn't say mechanical, but it's so focused on the end product. Whereas something like The Taste of Things and this first meal that we see, the end product is important, but what we're sucked into is the process of them cooking, the relationship and trust and coordination that, Dodin and Eugénie have. And then, like you said, they're bringing in Pauline. So you have this beautiful coordination, not just of those in the kitchen, but the camera, the way the camera is just kind of circling in and out as if you're like another attendant. I mean, the
Yeah.
audience really becomes kind of, you're always in close proximity to the meal, to the pot, to this happening. And it's without you being able to smell the food and taste the food, it wants you to sense, to hear all these foods, everything bubbling, and to kind of get sucked in through your senses. It like kind of captures you and just teaches you like almost how to watch the rest of this movie. It's going to be this slow meditative reflection.
One of the things I thought as someone who cooks is, oh, the layers, the complexity. You know, it's one thing to put pork loin in a dish and roast it, and then roast it again, and then take all the drippings out and then put them through a sieve and make a sauce out of them and then roast it. Like, just the iterative process here. I mean, it's introducing us in some ways to sort of French cuisine, because I would have stopped with it came out of the oven and we would have just, had all the stuff in the pan on the side and that would have been what we ate. But it's like, no, we can take this further. No, there's another step to make this even more exquisite, even more pleasurable. I mean, this film is about pleasure. And you mentioned when we were preparing for this, you wanted to talk about the notion of the gift. This is about providing pleasure for those who are going to consume, who are going to feast.
Eugénie, merci. C'était absolument merveilleux.
Merci. Let's talk a little bit about that relationship, because the film ended with a question and answer that I at first found confounding. I was like, as a married person,
I still find it confounding. So
yeah, like why? So the question at the very end of the film, it's a flashback, and she says, "Am I your cook or your wife?" And he says, "You are my cook." And she's pleased with that response.
She's very pleased. Yeah, that's what she wanted to hear.
Je peux vous poser une question? C'est très important pour moi. Je suis votre cuisinière ou je suis votre femme?
Ma cuisinière.
Merci.
Yeah, and throughout the film, we know that she has a history of saying, "No, I don't want to marry you." I'm content with how our relationship is playing out. I'm content with my role in this house. And we should say they have a long-standing love affair, and he feels very passionately about her. But we get to the end, and he says this thing that she is pleased by. And I decided after watching it again, she's pleased by the idea that she's his partner, truly his partner, that they're working together to create this amazing food, these amazing experiences. And that to her feels more autonomous and more creative than being a wife. So we could talk about what legal precedent was in place in France for wives and why she might feel that way. But as a wife, I was like, well, being a wife is actually a creative and lovely partnership as well. I wish we could say that here, but
no. And I think that's probably like ultimately where I settled too, where it's like, I wonder if this is just like a very French response to the idea of wife at the time, because I think the way that she's wanting him to say, "You're my cook," and that idea of partnership and accepting you as a whole person is probably what we think of when we think of husband and wife too. Like
right.
That when we talk about the idea of gift, of self-gift, of fully giving yourself to the other person and fully receiving them, which is why food is such a wonderful, way to play that out here. But like, that's what that relationship of husband and wife should look like.
Right.
So it puzzled me for a while. I'm just putting it up to, it's her very French response, at the time.
For a country that women didn't get the right to vote till the 1970s, There might be a good reason why someone says, I'd prefer not to be your wife. This idea then also, the other confounding thing to me was, and maybe we're just leaping all over plot points here, but at the end, Eugenie's going to die very unexpectedly for Dodin. The rest of us watching the movie are like, oh, she is not long for this world.
I mean, she almost faints like 2-3 minutes into the film, and you just,
Tu ne te sens pas bien, Eugénie?
Ça va, ça va aller.
And as beautiful as Juliette Binoche looks, they've given her these dark circles under her eyes. And it was like, all is not well in paradise. So she's going to die. And this, I guess the end of the second act is really about finding a new cook. I was a little like, why is he looking for a new cook? I can see why logistically and rationally why he's looking for a new cook. But it did seem to me like it sort of undermines all the passion and, so what did you think about that plot point?
If you go back and you look at this movie as a whole, there's like 7 big meals that we go through. And I'm including at the end the 7th uncooked meal, the pot-au-feu. And that's what he's trying, like you said in the last act, he was trying to find a cook to help him finish that last dish. So much of this movie is about self-gift, body and soul, that, having a bodily pleasure can have a spiritual and profound impact on you. Eating is not merely a biological function. It's actually more important for the human experience than we may think. And so when he loses Eugenie, he loses, in a sense, part of his soul. He's a body again without a soul. I mean, he tells Violette, I have no need for you anymore. Tell the other guy, get rid of all those pots. He can't even cook anymore. He has no soul. It's maybe not expressed as well, but I feel like him slowly eating again and not just drinking, having Pauline there by his side, he's slowly coming around to trying to recover that idea of almost keeping her present by the act of cooking. I love in that opening scene, all the guys come down after the meal and they're like, oh, why couldn't you join us? And she says, one, like she understands, like, this is a gift from me to you. I have to be here to cook and make it the way I want. But then she goes into that lovely discourse about, I've tasted every little bit and I've smelled it and I know every fiber and, everything that you're eating, I'm present in. That idea of like, the body is both a sign and a gift. It's a sign of someone's presence.
And she has a line where she says, I converse with you through what you eat.
À table, je converse déjà avec vous à travers ce que vous mangez. Quoi dire de plus?
This is not just me being subservient and I'm, the drudge in the kitchen. This is me, in fact, in some ways, that's a challenge. Are you guys sensitive enough? Are you receptive enough to hear what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, she's almost challenging them. Like they want her company, but she's like, but do you understand the gift I gave you? Are you able to receive and understand that everything that went into what I gave you? And I'm wondering now as we talk about this, like, when do we see her happiest in this movie? Is it at that moment? Is it, at their little wedding feast?
I would say one of the moments I thought she was truly happy was when she went to talk to Pauline's parents. And she was like, reaching out to them. I would love to train your daughter. I want to sort of pass on all this knowledge to someone.
Avec votre permission, je formerai Pauline. Monsieur Dodin le souhaite également. Elle a tout. C'est une cuisinière exceptionnelle. Exceptionnelle.
C'est un grand honneur.
Mais c'est encore une enfant. C'est le meilleur âge pour apprendre.
And she was curious about them and what they're doing in the garden with the little electric fields.
Oh, the copper and zinc. Yeah.
Yes.
Which there is no scientific basis for, apparently. But, yeah.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Ce sont des antennes de cuivre, surmontées d'une couronne de zinc. Il y en a un peu partout.
Hein?
Elles sont distantes de 7 mètres les unes des autres.
C'est étonnant. Elles servent à quoi?
À créer du courant électrique sous le sol. Ça renforce les plantes, ça leur donne une meilleure santé et la récolte est meilleure.
Ah, vraiment?
Oui, oui.
And so, I mean, Eugenie herself is just sort of, you know, walking around enchanted with the world, you know. And has Dodin reached that? We're not sure. You know, has anybody else reached that? We're not sure. But she certainly, you know, she has that speech when she says, I love the summer. It's always going to be summer for me.
Nous sommes à l'automne de notre vie, vous dites. Parlez pour vous. Je me sens en plein été. Et quand je partirai, ce sera encore l'été. J'aime l'été. Pas vous?
Moi, j'aime toutes les saisons. Les premières gouttes froides d'une pluie, les premiers flocons de neige, les premiers feux de cheminée, les premiers bourgeons. Toutes ces premières choses qui reviennent chaque année me ravissent.
Oh, mais l'été, le soleil, Ah! J'aime cette brûlure. J'ai besoin de cette brûlure dans mon corps. C'est comme ces braises que je manie tous les jours.
Je comprends.
You know, she's just sort of connected in a way that we're not, I don't know that anyone else is. I do have to say, so in the sequence when he's interviewing chefs and they're all an abysmal failure.
I love the one woman who comes in and she's just like very frank. She's like, I cannot make this for you.
Yes.
I know myself. I cannot do this.
Je n'arriverai pas à faire ce potage, je suis désolée. Mais si vous pensez que je pourrais l'apprendre de vous, vous n'avez qu'à le faire savoir. Au revoir, monsieur.
But what I loved what she said was, if you can teach me how to do this, I can do this. Which I think is what, in the beginning, we're learning from Eugenie. Let me teach Pauline. And Pauline says, who did you learn to cook from? And she said, well, my father was really impatient, so it was my mother.
Qui t'a appris à cuisiner alors?
Mes parents, mon père était un grand pâtissier à Paris, célèbre même, je dirais. Mais j'ai surtout appris de ma mère, il était pas très patient.
And I wanted to say to Dodin in that moment, like, you're just expecting someone to show up and have all these skills that Eugenie had, but we all learn them. And if you were patient and had the time, or yourself had the ability to teach, you could help someone become, you know, again, what you need.
Yeah, and it's funny because he does seem to have that patience with Pauline. I love that scene between the two of them early on where he's having her taste it at different stages. Like any movie where we have a prodigy, you have to see the gifts kind of bubble and you're like, wow, how can they do that? And she takes, you know, the little spoonful and she lists, you know, what is it, like a dozen plus ingredients.
Yes.
Oh, there's juniper berry and there's this and there's that. And
Tu saurais me dire ce qu'il y a dedans?
Du plat de côte, de lard fumé, des poivrons rouges, des champignons, du fenouil, de la tomate, de l'orange, du vin,
Oui, du vin conflant, bravo.
du persil, thym, laurier, du cumin, du genièvre, des clous de girofle,
Continue.
C'est tout, je crois.
Il y a aussi du paprika, du cognac. Et pour atténuer l'acidité du vin, on ajoute de la gelée de groseille. Et ben voilà. Tu sais faire la sauce bourguignotte. Bravo.
And he's like, yeah, she's pretty good. I think we can teach her. But he does, at least at times recognize that, the culinary art is something that to also be passed on. It is a gift in that way, not just to serve someone a beautiful meal, but to teach someone how to do that for others. He doesn't quite get it with the cooks at the end, because he's trying to replace. Yeah, he's grieving. He's trying to replace Eugenie, and Eugenie is someone who challenged him on his ideas. It wasn't so much he had to teach her. He really wanted a partner that, was kind of at his level. But it does happen quick. And I think that's one thing that throws me with the end of this film is that we go from that last meal they have together, that intimate meal in the kitchen, I think over like an omelet, and it's just the two of them. And she gives that beautiful story of the dream that she has, and where it's happened twice, where she dreams of him coming down the hall and coming into her room, and then 2 occasions he actually was there.
L'extraordinaire s'est produit 2 fois.
Quoi donc?
De vous imaginer sortant de votre chambre sans faire de bruit. Voir monter cette volée de marche. Puis vous tournez à droite et longez le bout de couloir. Ensuite, vous gravissez l'escalier de service pour parvenir à l'étage. Vous faites encore quelques pas pour parvenir à ma porte. Et finalement, vous posez votre main sur la poignée de porte. Par 2 fois. Seulement. Pendant toutes ces années, au moment même où je vous voyais ouvrir ma porte, elle s'est ouverte réellement.
And then she's on the brink of tears, and then it like cuts to black, and the next morning she's dead.
Let's go to your organizing principle, or the film's organizing principle of the 7 meals. Walk us through those.
All right, so we have the opening meal, which we've talked about a lot. It takes the first 30 minutes of the film. This meal teaches us that food is a gift, and it's also a sign of someone's presence. The second one, and I'll be curious to hear what you think of it, is the ortolan meal. When they go to that farm and they sit and they eat the ortolans under the napkins. What'd you make of that?
Well, it became this mystical religious experience, right? We're going to cover our heads. Obviously, they're covering their heads with napkins so they can better scent or smell the food and have be more immersed in that experience. But it looks sort of like a Masonic, let's all put our heads underneath these things and we're having this experience.
Merci, Augustin. Merci.
I think for me, there are several of these meals where Eugenie wasn't invited, and I felt like, oh, what a loss. What would have Eugenie said about this? I mean, I understand the division of the sexes in the 19th century, and also she's the cook, so she's not socially as high as he is. But at the same time, I felt her absence at the meals where she wasn't, and I felt like they would have been richer experiences had she been there.
No, I agree. And it's just as when Dodin loses her, he kind of loses her soul. When we have meals without her present, without her cooking or eating, it loses a little something. And we're kind of, oh, look, take us back to the house in the kitchen. We want to be there. So we do feel that in the ortolan scene, which there's still many arguments to be made about why they wear the napkins. Yeah, it does feel somewhat mysterious. It's representative of kind of what this film is trying to do for us. We are in the frame of the film, kind of under this napkin, looking at this food, sensing it, and this mysterious thing is happening. But it loses a little something without Eugenie.
Yeah. Well, and when they get invited to eat with the Prince of Eurasia, and I should have looked up, did that really exist? Did we have a place?
Yeah, or is it like one of these, the movie invents a country, so it's, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, and that's what we have is like the third meal, which I find interesting is we don't see it.
Right.
You only hear Eugenie and the guys talk about it and the menu beforehand. What'd you make of us like not being there for that?
Because we go from one list to another list. We have the cook come in and read the menu.
Le second service sera de 2 relevés, précédant les 4 plats d'Euro, un de l'hôte du lac de Genève à la Vestale et l'autre de truite de Torrent à la Chartreuse. Et les plats d'Euro seront de dindon à la daube, de côte de bœuf à la hollandaise, de poitrine de veau au pontif, escorté de riz de veau de la même manière et de quenelle de la même pièce. Et d'un gigot farci.
It isn't until we get to the second list in the kitchen where it's being explained to us why these things don't work together. Not only is it too much, but there's no central conceit in why these things are being eaten at the same time, and we're getting Eugenie, and she's kind of laughing at this, and then she tells us what Dodin had said about it.
En résumé, Dodin voyait le repas donné par le prince comme une construction touffue, abondante et riche, mais sans lumière, sans clarté. Point d'air, point de logique, point de ligne, de la coutume, mais pas de règle. Un défilé, mais pas d'ordonnance. Marqué de fautes dans la succession des goûts et des touchés.
But again, it was a place where when he accepted the invitation and he said, I'm going to take my friends with me, I was kind of shocked that he didn't say, and Eugenie's coming along too. But like the friends in some ways seem more like gourmands, and she seems like the skilled technician artist who would benefit most.
Yeah, that group of friends almost strikes me as kind of almost like groupies. Like they're kind of hanging around both the cook and the gourmand, just like, oh wow, we can eat good food around if we just tag along. We really don't learn anything about these other characters.
No, I had to concentrate to be like, you're the one that does what? Like
maybe a little hint to their professions. So one is obviously a doctor, but beyond that, they're drawn by the meals, by the experience, and the prince doesn't understand that experience that brings them together. The prince is obviously focused on excess and abundance and the body without the soul. Oh, if I just give you all the pleasures in the world, that will be great. And it has no grace. It has no soul.
And it's less a gift and more of, let me impress you. Let me show off. And he himself is divorced from the production of the food. I mean, obviously, his wealth makes possible this meal, but he's not cooking it. He's not designing it.
No, he's sitting back with that Al Pacino swagger in his chair, just lapping it up, just like, oh, listen to this menu. Isn't it great, guys?
Yep.
Abundant is even an understatement here.
Yep.
And then so after the prince's meal, we go to, I think what's the best compliment to the opening meal is Dodin's meal for Eugenie. She falls sick. She has a little health scare, and then he decides to cook for her. So what'd you make of, we've seen Eugenie in the kitchen up to this point, seeing Dodin in the kitchen and kind of the reversal of roles here?
From what I can understand, he has the roasted chicken, which he roasted like 3 different ways. He has the oysters. And I would say the chicken preparation is very much like what's happening in the opening of the film, cinematographically. But when we get to the oysters become more sensual, right? We are now really close on him and the oysters themselves. We're moving back and forth between these tight insert shots. And he's also like, he puts the caviar. I think there's caviar he's serving with
There's
them.
caviar on it too, yeah.
Yeah. And he puts that on his hand and he like licks that and tastes it. And that becomes much, much more sensual so that when they're presented to her, that this is his love and passion for her.
Because this meal ultimately becomes his proposal. It is very sensual. I think we could even call it erotic in the Greek sense of, the word. He even has the pear, and he's choosing that poached pear carefully. He wants it, where the camera suggests that he wants it to resemble, her naked form. And we get that fade from the pear to Eugenie in bed. And so that idea of the gift of the food and then the gift of the body and that kind of reciprocal nature. He does something interesting out, and I was kind of put off by it at first. He sits down towards the end of the meal and he goes, Can I just watch you eat?
Yes.
Vous me permettez de vous regarder manger?
Oui, si vous voulez.
And my first reaction is, well, that's a bit creepy. But he sees this food as a gift. And he sees her as a gift, too. Someone that he wants to receive all of her, all of who she is. It's like we get enjoyment when someone receives our gift. Now, I'm not personally a gift giver. Like, my father is a big gift giver.
Yeah.
So every time, like, he gives me a gift, like, I make sure to react in a way that expresses to him, like, how much I appreciate it and I love it. So there is that he just wants to see that she loves his gift, that she's one that can appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I want to go, is because we've seen her cook for this group of men, and, they're all like profoundly, yeah, there's a lot of that in there as they're eating the food.
C'est toujours impressionnant.
Magnifique.
Et il y a de la glace à l'intérieur.
C'est miraculeux. Hein. Miraculeux, c'est beaucoup dire. C'est tout simplement un fait scientifique.
But there's one point when she almost starts to cry when she's alone eating, but it's out of joy. Like, you can see that she's so touched and knows exactly what he's doing and knows the effort he went to. It means so much to her. And then again, when he says, "Can I watch you eat?" she laughs at that at first, but then, she's like overcome by emotion. Like, this is, and she says that very simple thing, like, "I love your broth." Like, you did a wonderful job with the broth.
Votre bouillon est délicieux. Vous allez me donner le goût de me faire servir dans ma chambre.
Autant que vous le souhaitez.
Such a simple, may think of that as a simple thing to have created, but, we saw all the complexity of flavor that went into that. And anyway, her knowing what it took to make this meal and knowing that it was made for her, right, makes her the ideal recipient. And she knows the love that went into it and is feeling that love as she eats. in a way that I think shames the rest of us. When I think of like the meals that have been prepared for me with love and kindness, and, you know, did I just think, oh, that's what my grandma does, she loves to cook? Or did I like really spend some time to think about how much effort and work went into what I was about to, you know, partake of?
Right. No, and it's we tend to treat eating, you know, as, you know, this biological necessity. We have to eat, we have to survive, and it brought me back to I don't know if you're familiar with the bioethicist Leon Kass, but he has this great book. And I'll hold it up for viewers. The Hungry Soul. So the Hungry Soul, eating and the perfecting of our nature. And so his whole argument in this book is that eating is not merely a biological necessity. It's a deeply meaningful human activity that both reflects and shapes our moral and spiritual character. And he goes into kind of all the principles that underlie this idea that eating is more than survival, that, you know, it builds hospitality and community. It instills virtues in us like reverence and gratitude, temperance and hospitality, you know, virtues that I think we would probably argue are maybe a little bit less seen today. You know, there's something unique in Eugenie that like she is able to receive this and fully appreciate it. And yeah, we lose sight of the fact that food can have this actually very powerful moral and spiritual impact on us and, you know, the people that cook for us and that we cook for. There are many dishes, I think, in my life that I attach to specific people.
Right.
And it does feel like in this scene that Dodin is creating a new dish, maybe, but a specific dish for her. I mean, because she seems to like, she's turning around the plate, she's admiring it.
Attention, monsieur m'a dit de présenter l'assiette comme je l'ai fait.
Je sais, oui.
And as if she's never seen it before.
Right.
And I think there's something beautiful in that kind of unique gift.
And it's, I mean, I think in the film it's connected to the proposal that we ourselves are going to create something new. You don't have to be afraid of marriage because we're going to create something new with it.
I know you wanted to touch on the Augustine quote, but, you know, actually I had it written down here. Do you have it written down? I know I have it somewhere.
He says, happiness is continuing to desire what we already have.
Right. And if you go back to the Confessions where Augustine kind of talks about that, you know, what he's talking about is the ability to desire not just what we already have and like what we possess, but the good that we have in our lives. And, you know, so much of Eugenie and Dodin's relationship is about appreciating what is good in their lives, whether it's the food that they're able to grow and cook together, you know, the ability to cook and work together and the trust they have in the kitchen, or to pass on this gift to someone else. They do seem to be appreciating what's good in their lives, and they don't let excess or fame, like he hates that his label as the Napoleon of gastronomy. But I mean, the more we can appreciate what's good in our lives and not just want things for the sake of, oh, I need that now, and I need, you know, we know all too well in our consumeristic culture, you know, just, I need the latest thing. I need that new thing. And if we always want something else, it's not actually the thing that we want. It's the act of wanting.
It's the rush of acquisition. Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say, you know, I found that saying that quote actually sort of one of the most anti-Hollywood things of the whole movie. This film, created or directed by a Vietnamese director of great renown in France under the French system. And, you know, there's this moment where they're kind of saying, we don't need bigger explosions. We don't need, you know, well, I mean, it's a gorgeous set, but we don't need like...
I want that kitchen. Yeah, you know?
Yes. We don't need, you know, if you think about James Bond and how James Bond is like acquiring all these different places on Earth and sort of bringing them into the empire, we don't need that. What we need is like quiet moments with the people we love and to truly appreciate what we have in those moments. And that's beautiful. And that's going to be as moving as, you know, the sacrificial hero in an Avengers film, you know, giving their life for, you know, humanity. And
I love that we get to see in the next meal those beautiful moments with the people that they love when they have the wedding feast.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's all those people that are in their lives. Even Pauline's parents are there, and they're just having this, you know, what I wouldn't say not simple to our standards, but simple to maybe their standards, you know, feast outside. And Dodin gives that lovely speech about entering the autumn of their lives. And again, we see that sense of gratitude, not just for their relationship, but for creation. And I love how he goes through the seasons. Like in summer, we lose this. But when fall comes, we gain, you know, all these fruits and vegetables and animals, and appreciating those different parts of our lives, those different phases, and the people that come into them. And again, that's something food can do for us. I mean, we create rituals and manners around the table all the time. This is another thing Leon Kass gets into, that like actually, you know, animals will just eat. They'll eat to survive. There's no ritual. There's no cooking of the food. We cook food, we elevate it, we create a ritual, we'll say prayers, we'll offer gratitude and thanks. And that has a huge impact on kind of who we are, how we see humanity, how we even see the divine, other people. And I just love that wedding scene. And we don't see the wedding, we just see the feast.
No. Yeah. Well, one of the things that the wedding scene articulated for me was the fact that I like the romance of Eugenie and Dodin, but I like better how connected they are to the community. And so what's interesting is the very first food we see is the two of them eating this omelet together that Eugenie has made. But then they bring in Violette and Pauline.
Et qui es-tu, jeune fille?
C'est Pauline, ma nièce. Je dois la garder aujourd'hui.
Bah, je t'en prie, assieds-toi.
Merci, monsieur.
Alors, je te conseille de la manger avec la cuillère. Tu verras, ça change tout.
And like that to me is, yes, this couple is really important, but one of the reasons they're very important is because they're connected to all these other communities, and that they're going to use their gifts to sort of make those communities feel whole and strong. And so I just loved I wrote down all the ways that that wedding feast, and then his group of, you know, his entourage that's always with him, and, you know, the connection that they're making to everyone else, I thought was just as important as the romance.
Absolutely. And I love Pauline's face during that wedding feast. She is like so giddy and excited. She's like, oh, these two people that I love, that I'm learning from, and they're, you know, this, you know, she's just so happy to be there and to celebrate them and to see that, you know, see them express that love in a public way. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So then what are the meals that are left?
So the wedding feast is 5. The last meal, right before Eugenie dies, which, you know, they come back to sharing that omelet together. So it creates a nice kind of bookend.
Cet instant, le meilleur moment de la journée.
And then the 7th one is the meal that they never do make together, the pot-au-feu. And so it's you know, we really just hop from one meal to the next. We have some discussion, some interludes in between, but it's a series of meals, and somehow creates just this beautiful landscape of relationship and gift and virtue, and it makes me just want to go cook right now.
This movie was delicious. And it reminded me of the sweetness of cooking with or for the people you love. My stepfather was from Guyana, And he taught me how to make this dish called pepper pot, which I still crave. He's been dead 20 years, and I can't figure out how to get the secret ingredient, kazreep, to make it ever again. My Jewish stepmother gifted me Mama Leah's Jewish cookbook a long time ago, and every time I make the challah or even the beef stew, I think about her. Once I married, I loved making Korean dishes for my husband, whose family immigrated from Korea in the 1960s. It was a whole new kind of cuisine that I'd never even attempted before, and I've learned a ton. And if we're completely honest, making biscuits on a Sunday reminds me of my great-grandmother, who grew up in East Tennessee. Food, it just makes me feel closer to people. That connection is beautifully captured in Babette's Feast, which you heard Justin and I reference. It's this gentle Danish comedy from 1987 about Babette, a French woman who escaped the wars in the 19th century and ended up at the home of these Danish sisters who are kind and good and very austere and very religious. Babette eventually inherits a lot of money, but she decides to use all of it in creating this grand French feast for these two sisters. In one way, it's a great big thank you, but in another way, it's about showing them the full extent of pleasure that's available and showing off her great skills. If you're interested in more gorgeous historical dramas about France, you could try An American Take from Sofia Coppola. Her 2006 Marie Antoinette was not well received by the French, but I found it a sober account about how a lonely, isolated woman would use decadence to try to fill her soul. It's beautifully costumed and shot, with a vulnerable performance from Kirsten Dunst as Marie Antoinette. Another movie about food that captures the development of a strong central relationship is The Lunchbox from 2013, starring the amazing Irfan Khan as a man who keeps getting the wrong lunch delivered to him at work. The movie is set in Mumbai and sort of takes us through this miraculous Mumbai lunchbox delivery system that lots of people have written about. It's a wonder of logistics. But this imagines what if something went wrong with the delivery system. The food looks delicious and makes me want to go back to New Delhi to eat anything I can. But the real charm here is the letters that get exchanged between Irfan Khan's character and the woman who has been making the lunchboxes. It's very sweet. Thanks for joining us today. Voiceover is a production of BYU Radio and is edited by Aaliyah Alexander. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.